Why do so many people living in rural Britain feel that government policy is increasingly working against them? Across the countryside, there is a growing perception that decisions made in Westminster do not reflect how rural economies actually function. Despite representing many rural constituencies, the Labour Party is often seen by farmers and countryside communities as distant from their day-to-day realities. In this video, we look at why that perception exists, focusing on recent policy positions affecting farming, land use, and rural life, and what these choices could mean for food production and rural sustainability in the UK. If you want clear, UK-focused economic explanations, subscribe and turn on notifications. Several policy signals have raised concern in rural areas. Proposals to ban trail hunting, changes to farm inheritance taxation, expansion of solar farms onto productive land, a broader green strategy that reshapes food production. If these policies continue along their current path, there are several possible outcomes. Farming could become less viable for smaller operators. Food production could decline while costs rise. Land ownership could shift away from working farms. None of this guarantees a crisis, but it does suggest that rural areas are being asked to absorb a disproportionate share of economic adjustment. To understand why this matters, it helps to look at how rural systems work in practice. Trail hunting, for example, is often discussed purely as a cultural issue. In reality, it is part of a wider rural network. Under current law, trail hunting is legal and does not involve killing foxes. It involves laying a scent trail that hounds follow, allowing horses and hounds to move across land with landowner permission. In many areas, hunts work closely with farmers. They support local businesses, such as farriers and feed suppliers. They also provide a disposal route for fallen livestock, taking deceased animals that would otherwise need to be removed at additional cost. When one part of this system is removed, costs increase elsewhere. For farmers already operating on tight margins, even small cost increases can determine whether they remain in business. The average farm operates on around a 1% return on capital. Many farmers earn less than the minimum wage once hours worked are taken into account. Historically, one factor that made farming viable was the ability to pass land down through generations, without triggering large capital taxes. That allowed families to survive on low annual returns, without being forced to sell assets. Changes to inheritance taxation alter that balance. A 20% tax on farm assets can represent decades of profit. Even when paid over time, interest increases the burden. This shifts incentives. Some farmers will sell land. Others will leave farming altogether. At the same time, productive farmland is increasingly being converted to solar use. This has two economic effects. First, it reduces the amount of land producing food. Second, it pushes up land values across the market. Higher land values mean higher required returns. Higher required returns make farming less viable, particularly for new or smaller entrants. This is not just about individual decisions. It represents a structural change in the economics of agriculture. A government concerned about inflation and interest rates might be expected to prioritise abundant food supply. However, current green policy frameworks assume reduced consumption of meat and dairy. The Climate Change Committee has indicated that prices for meat and dairy are expected to rise by around 20 to 25% over time. Direct taxation would be politically difficult. Instead, the adjustment happens indirectly, through higher production costs and reduced supply. When supply falls and demand remains stable, prices rise. That is basic economics. When you combine these pressures, the effect becomes cumulative. Higher costs, lower margins, reduced supply, rising prices. From the countryside perspective, this does not feel accidental. It feels like a consistent policy direction, one that places environmental and metropolitan priorities ahead of rural economic viability. There is also a cultural dimension. Many rural residents feel that policymakers lack familiarity with farming life and underestimate how interconnected rural economies really are. Direct taxation on meat and dairy products would be extremely difficult to introduce in the UK. These foods are a normal part of everyday life for most households, and any explicit tax would be highly unpopular and politically risky. Because of that, price changes are more likely to happen indirectly. If the cost of producing food rises, supply falls. And when supply falls, while demand stays broadly the same, prices rise until the two meet. That is basic economics. Several current policy directions push in that exact direction. First, removing trail hunts increases costs for livestock farmers. Hunts often provide a disposal route for fallen stock. Without that option, farmers must rely on commercial disposal services, which are more expensive. That cost does not disappear. It either reduces already thin margins or gets passed on through higher prices. Second, changes to farm taxation place additional pressure on businesses operating on very low returns. With average farm returns close to 1% on capital, absorbing large asset-based taxes is not realistic. To survive, farmers either need to charge more or leave the industry. When farms are sold, land often moves out of productive use and into recreational or hobby ownership. That reduces agricultural output and pushes prices higher. Third, the expansion of solar farms removes productive land from food production. At the same time, it raises land values across the market. Higher land values require higher returns, which again increases production costs and feeds into higher prices. Individually, each change can be defended. Together, they create a consistent pattern. Agriculture becomes less viable, supply tightens, and food becomes more expensive. From a rural perspective, this does not feel accidental. It looks like a deliberate strategy to reshape consumption by reshaping production, aligning agriculture with green policy goals without imposing direct consumer taxes. Whether this approach succeeds is uncertain. What is clear is that many people in rural areas interpret these policies not only as economic pressure, but as cultural distance. Decision-making is seen as highly metropolitan, with limited understanding of how farming life actually works, or how interconnected rural economies really are. That perception matters. When communities feel misunderstood or targeted, trust erodes, and once that trust is lost, it is difficult to rebuild. Trail hunting in this context becomes more than a single issue. It is seen as part of a broader pattern, one in which rural life feels undervalued and marginalised by policymakers, including the Labour Party. For many living in the countryside, the concern is simple. Policies that squeeze agriculture do not just affect farmers, they affect food prices, land use, and the long-term resilience of the country as a whole. If you live in a rural area, how are these changes affecting you? Are farming costs rising? Is land ownership becoming more difficult? Do these policies reflect rural realities? Share your experience in the comments. Rural Britain is not a lifestyle choice or a political symbol. It is a working economic system, one that produces food, sustains communities, and supports national resilience. When policy overlooks how that system functions, the consequences are economic, not abstract. Whether this approach continues will depend on whether rural voices are genuinely heard in future policy decisions. If you found this analysis useful, subscribe for more calm, UK-focused economic breakdowns.